Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Battle Buddy podcast. Got a great guest on today to talk about business, entrepreneurship, running a business, and a great program called Warrior Rising. If you are a business or a prospective business owner, you may have heard of Warrior Rising. You may have some questions about Warrior Rising. Today, we're going to hear a lot more about it. We're going to kind of walk through the steps and learn a lot more about it, kind of peel back the layers of the onion, if you will, and learn more about it. I've got a personal friend, fellow veteran, Frank Mantow, the original crane eater. He's been on the show a couple of times. He connected me with our guest today, Kenneth. And Frank speaks so highly of Warrior Rising and what it's done for him that I was so super excited that Frank connected me and Kenneth to be able to highlight for all of you exactly what Warrior Rising does. So without further ado, let's dive into it.
Welcome to the Battle Buddy Podcast with Keith McKeever.
So welcome to the podcast, Kenneth.
Thanks, Keith. How's it going today?
Well, it's going good. How about yourself?
Oh, doing all right. Just enjoying life.
That's good. Well, it's better than the opposite, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yeah, so my story, I'm an Army veteran, 9.5 years between active and ready reserve. I spent a lot of time in the Wyoming National Guard. After getting off of active duty, I actually got off of active duty in 2010. So right in 2009, 2010ish, right at the end there, right into the middle of an economic pretty much disaster, if any of us remember that.
Not exactly
And
a great time to get out. Yeah.
not exactly a great time to get out, and not exactly a great time to find a job. So I became, what me and a few of my buddies on the Warrior Rising board say, we became accidental entrepreneurs. I had a couple great skills that I had learned in high school, graduated with a computer science degree, and founded my first computer networking business. From there, traveled around quite a bit, played a little bit more college football, which I did before the military as well. Played professional and college rugby, traveled the world with that, played for the all military team, and then founded my second business. When my first business got backed and we started growing exponentially, started another business because I can't just do one thing at a time. Really was running two businesses, doing all this other stuff, playing sports, finishing up my college degree. And then I was getting ready actually to go to medical school. Had acceptance into medical school for an MD PhD program. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to start classes, I turned them down. And I said, I prefer business instead. Ended up going back and getting my MBA from the University of Wyoming and the University of Pforzheim in Germany. It was a dual degree program that was offered, and ended up working at Credit Suisse, and then worked 6 years at Goldman Sachs before leaving a little bit earlier this year to found yet another company, Main Street Bond, which is going to be a crowdfunding website to help entrepreneurs, as well as starting my own little VC fund, so venture capital fund, so that I can actually invest in entrepreneurs. So, lots of things going along there. And during this kind of crazy time period, my buddy Jason Van Camp, he's a former special operations officer, Green Beret, decided to start Warrior Rising, which, he asked if I would be a volunteer and a teacher at first, which I did, and then eventually, that's 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, he asked me to be on the board, and so I've been on the board since.
Awesome. Now, that is a heck of a story. And like you said, you get involved in a lot of things. I'm kind of like that. I think a lot of vets, we either find ourselves involved in a lot of things or you find yourself involved in like nothing. It's like a feast or famine thing. Like you're like one of the two, it seems like. But football and rugby, that is interesting. So
Yeah,
where did you play those?
University of Wyoming.
Okay.
So yeah, played there. I'm a bigger guy. Frank's you've met Frank in person.
Yes.
And so I
He's no
tower
small
over.
guy.
Yeah, I tower over Frank. I'm about 6'4", about right now walking around about 280. I also fought MMA, so all of this kind of just retired as a champion in MMA last year. So it was just constant. I have to constantly be on the move. But yeah, I mean, it's always been fun. Played for the Denver Barbarians, played for a few other teams as well. So, I mean, at the high level. So I mean, it was great fun actually. And while I was in Germany for my MBA, played on a professional football team out there, and that was so. I just constantly have to have my hand in something.
Oh, no, that's awesome. And for any listeners out there who have not explored rugby, I highly encourage you to do so. I will admit, I do not know and understand all of the rules, but I discovered rugby sevens a few years ago. And I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, where has this been my entire life? And why is this not on TV more?
Yeah, I wish.
I know there's
Yeah,
differences between the different levels and that, however many players on there, but like, man, rugby is awesome.
yeah, and I was mainly so I played 15s and sevens under union rules, and then for sevens it's just one big rule set. Sevens super fast pace. It's 7-minute halves, so it's a 14-minute game. You have 7 players on the field, and think of it kind of in terms it's kind of like 7 or 9 man football, right? It's a lot quicker speed than union rugby. Um, but it's wonderful to get people involved in the sport. It's also a great physical activity. You know, if we can all lean back to it, it's kind of back to our military days when we had to run, the 2 miles in 13 minutes to get your top score on the APFT, well, at least for the Army. And that's what you're doing with sevens rugby. So the only thing is that you got hitting, tackling, everything else. I got a couple gnarly injuries from that, which, I mean, obviously no pads and guys like me running around and going into each other at full force, you tend to get a few injuries, but I mean it's a great time, and it teaches the same things that we all learned in the military, and just really continues to build on them. That teamwork, working towards individual excellence, everything else.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, like most sports that are team sports, it requires teamwork, but it definitely one of those uh definitely requires teamwork and coordination and communication to be able to
Oh
move
yes,
that ball up and down the line and get it to the right person to break open and go score a try, right?
it's a try. Yep.
Yep, yep. See, I know a
Awesome.
few
Hey, you
things.
got it.
Yeah, I know a few things. So, back to the Warrior Rising thing. So, yeah, you kind of alluded to, kind of the story there to help veterans. But who is Warrior Rising for? What?
Yeah. So Warrior Rising is for veterans and their immediate family from any time period. So originally we started with focusing in on the post 9/11, the GWAT, the Global War on Terror. Excuse me. So just so that I figure all your listeners know, but
Hey, you
so
never know. You might have somebody older, who
yeah.
who doesn't, or
So
you may have a spouse who doesn't know that. Yeah,
exactly.
good point.
And so we did, we originally focused on that, and then we broadened our focus to any veteran. And then we said, well, who else gives, sacrifices? And we also said, hey, anyone in their immediate family. So that's where kind of who we help, which is a very broad group, right? Military spouses, sons, daughters, military veterans. Um, and the key point here is that our entire service is absolutely free for everyone. So all of those people that qualify, it's absolutely free throughout, the entire course.
So I know the first step is an automated intake. What exactly does that
Yeah.
look like then?
So I'll take you through kind of the 5 steps.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, I want to say if this brings with you, head on over to warriorrising.org,
Well,
which
yeah, I have
you
the
can go
banner
right
here. I'll
through here.
throw that up there.
Oh, awesome.
It's in
Uh,
the show notes too. Everybody, yeah, all my usual listeners know I've always got it in the show notes.
Awesome. So our automated intake, basically you go through and you fill out some forms which tell us how long did you serve. We ask for that information. We've actually got a connection into the DoD to where we can verify as soon as you say, hey, I'm, Keith, you served in
Air
Army, correct?
Force.
Or Air Force.
Yep,
Sorry. Apologies on that. I mean,
that's all right.
you made the smart choice. I made kind of the dumb choice. Love my time in the Army, but looking back on it, I wish I would have joined the Air Force. Um, then, so you go through, automatically validates. If you're a spouse, you fill in, your spouse's information. Everything gets automatically verified, and you get an email from us. Now, what that does is it's all like, what is your business? What do you need help on? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once all of that is combined, you get a link to the Warrior Academy and a login to the Warrior Academy. Now, the Warrior Academy is kind of the next step we have a 6-step process, as you already alluded to. But the Warrior Academy is, I like to put it as a Ranger School MBA, right? We basically took the idea behind Ranger School is, one of the most elite leadership. It is the most elite leadership course the military has to offer. They combined it all into 60 days to be mentally tough, everything else. We did the same thing with an MBA program where like vets aren't going to have 2 years to go to an MBA. Most vets aren't, with an idea like this, don't want to do 2 years of an MBA program. And even more so, some of them haven't gone to school for business before. They don't understand business. So how do we do this? We turn that entire academy and MBA into military lingo that you and I are used to. If I tell you to go fill out an op board, you can go fill out an op board, an operations order for those that aren't in the military. But when you go do that, that tells you where you need to be, what your target is, everything else. Well, that's how we designed the business plan. So it's all like everyone in the military knows how to write an op board. That's how you can write your business plan. So it really takes all these key kind of almost I don't want to say imaginary, but non-physical aspects of the business process, and then tosses it into a way that veterans and their family can easily learn business terms, lingo, accounting, everything else, to where they're prepared to pitch their business and prepared to start their business, whether it go to a bank for funding or anywhere else.
Well, it's great because, well, like you said, not everybody has a business degree or has had any business training. Because those of us that are veterans, we know that like the GI Bill and the education benefits, like some people qualify, some people don't qualify. Depends if you're active duty, guard, reserve, how long you serve, when you served, where you served, like all of the
Exactly.
charts and graphs that determine what benefits you actually get. All that crap, we, you know what I mean. But like it's stupid, but it is what it is, right? So like not everybody has those benefits, or spouses even. Like I didn't serve exactly 6 years, so like I could never transfer my GI Bill to my spouse. One of those things. I mean, there's a lot of people like that. Oh, serve 4 years, and I'm doing something, but my spouse is trying to do business. They're trying to launch it, but I didn't serve. I only served 4 years, or maybe they serve 5 or whatever, and they didn't transfer it over, and that kind of sucks that they can't. So it's a great avenue for them to be able to use something like that.
Yeah, and the other thing, you said stupid, but our entire model is KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Like, it's designed for anyone to be able to understand it. It's the same way that, we train everything in the military, right? You should be able to do every job that you're capable of, and with the correct training. So that's what we did.
Yeah, well, don't overcomplicate stuff, right?
Yeah, no, like,
no need to overcomplicate it.
I mean, think about, like, for anyone that's gone through the VA, there's obviously a ton of jokes within the veteran community about dealing with the VA. We don't want that experience for anyone that comes onto our program. We want it very quick, simple. Let's get moving to the point, because it's efficiency of movement. If I'm going out on a mission or anything else, it's not like I'm going to take a 10 loop-de-loop, go into the background, and then come back. It's find your target, acquire your target, and then destroy.
Absolutely. So that's the academy. And then, so what's next?
Yep. So the academy, once you complete the academy, by the time you complete the academy, you're going to have a business plan. You're going to be able to do some financial projections, everything else. Then we go into our monthly coaching sessions and mentoring sessions. So, for each of us, we have quite a few different avenues that we mentor and coach on. For me, mostly it's finance. I spent 6 years on Wall Street doing finance, doing
I think you're uniquely qualified to to mentor in that
so
avenue.
it's and then we've got people that have done nothing but strategy. So it's all like, hey, here's your go-to-market strategy. We have some people that they're super good at retail, and they mentor on retail. We do this, and it's a monthly session. We'll normally bring in a few different guest speakers to talk through it, and then move forward. Normally we try to do picking mentors, and also if you want to be a mentor or a coach, beyond all the vets that are out there, but anyone else who's listening to your podcast and might want to be a mentor or coach, we do have open volunteer spots for those as well. So, we bring on the mentors, the coaches. We try to do it. Right now, I'm a little overloaded on mentees. I have about 7 right now that I'm helping, and they're all different types of businesses. So it's a little bit interesting, but I've run enough different types of businesses. I gave some of the highlights, but for about 7 different types, so I'm able to use that learning. But we have a ton of coaches and mentors just like me that are mentoring, and this can go on for months, right? Starting a business isn't something that happens overnight. And the other big thing about this is most of us that are mentoring and coaching, we're older. I know that in recent business stuff, everyone's all like, well, we have all these 20-year-old multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs. And it's all like, that's not statistically correct. They're kind of the extreme example. Your average successful entrepreneur is about 42 years old. So like when you actually look at the statistics, the vast majority fall into about 42 years old. Why is that? You have an expertise or you have a passion, and you've had to go through the cycles of learning. In the military, we learned our leadership characteristics, right? In the corporate world, you're learning your trade. This allows for people to mature a little bit. I'm a lot different right now as I am than what I was as, I joined the military when I was about 21. So when I was 21 and didn't have a clue and was very immature. So that's where we see a lot happen here. But,
That's
we
most
have,
people.
yeah, but we have these coaching sessions that, until you're ready to go forward, people can stay there for 2 years. And it's perfectly fine. And then once you feel ready to really kick off your business, we go through something called Vet to CEO. Now, I've seen people go straight from the Warrior Academy to Vet to CEO. I've seen some come in and say, I finished with Warrior Academy, stay a year and a half in our mentoring sessions before they feel ready to go on to the next step. Really, it's all about your comfort. This is entirely self-driven. Vet to CEO is basically giving more of what the Warrior Academy did. So this is where we're going to bring in, nightly classes. I shouldn't say nightly, normally they're weekly. We'll do weekly classes, we'll get to, and it's a 9-week program. So this one is literally 9 weeks of, you have set classes, things like that, to ensure that you're ready to start your business and that you've thought through, this goes into financial planning, this goes into content creation, this goes into just about everything possible that you could think of to run a business.
Okay, yeah. That's a very, very valuable step. So the people that tend to skip that, do those people tend to have a little bit more business experience or business background?
So we actually don't. We used to allow people to skip it because we were still building it out.
Yeah, I skipped the other
Yeah.
steps to that. Or do
So
they?
yeah, so you really can't skip the Warrior Academy, but when you go into like the monthly mentoring one-on-one, if you have business experience, if you've been to B school, things like that,
You're
that's
gonna fly
when
through it a little faster.
yeah,
You
you're
kinda
gonna feel more comfortable to say, think of it this way, right? If you come in and you were in like JROTC, all of that, you've been running the Army PT test since you were 14 years old, and you go to basic training, is, you're not going to need as many hand-holding things as someone who doesn't understand anything about the military.
makes
So
a lot of sense. Yeah.
it's one of those where the monthly mentoring, it's a great value add, and even a lot of people in the Vet CEO are still going to monthly mentoring meetings. Frank, I don't think he's missed one, and he's been in our for the monthly mentoring. I don't think he's missed one mentoring session, and he's been with us for about 3 years now, 3.5 years. Every month he's on a mentoring session because he's always trying to glean something new.
Oh,
right?
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
he's trying to soak up every bit of knowledge he can and grow and he's done amazing with his business.
he has. I mean, when I and I'm super proud of Frank. So Frank has been he's one of my mentees. He's a great friend as well. Um, him and one of my other, if you've ever heard of Luke seminar, but he runs Clusive. So it's a blind software. Him and Frank literally came to Warrior Rising with ideas, and I've been able to help mentor them from the idea stage all the way to where they have very viable companies now. So that's a big thing.
I think it was about 2.5 years, probably about 2.5 years ago that I first met Frank, and he was kind of a little past the idea stage. I think he had made some prototypes and kind of sold them to some friends and family and stuff at that time, but he still hadn't even kind of perfected even the final recipe. He hadn't figured out where to make them, or going through all those hoops and jumps that he had to go through. And I'm in real estate, and I mean, it's totally different industry, but we're in a business networking group, or we were in one together for a while. And I just love sitting there hearing his story and his challenges, because it's totally different business perspective than what I have. Like, totally different challenges that I'll never face in my industry. So it was really informative for me to sit there and
Yeah,
hear it.
like there was one time, it was actually this summer. So Frank gave me a call and he's like, "Do you know how to stop chocolates from melting when you're mailing them?" And it's a problem that I'd never thought of.
that, that would make two of us. Yeah,
And
I
I'm
mean,
like, apparently there is. And so I have some good connections in the food industry. So I was reaching out there and I'm just all like, this is something I never would have thought of. I've never, I've been in finance, I've been in SaaS, I've been in construction, I've been in computers. This is something. So with a lot of these businesses, you get a unique perspective, especially where I'm sitting and seeing some of the day-to-day challenges. So
but where there's a challenge, there's an opportunity to solve it.
exactly.
Yep. Yeah,
So
and if I
you
and
know,
if we both know Frank, Frank will find Frank will find a way somehow to solve that problem.
well, when I how I've always introduced Frank, Frank is, if you can imagine what an old Marine NCO is, that is Frank. No matter what, he's going to accomplish his objective, even if it takes him battering down the door with his own head. So I mean, he's very very stubborn, and it's something that I very much appreciate about Frank is that through all the challenges and a lot of our almost shouldn't say all of our entrepreneurs, but almost all of our entrepreneurs that come through Warrior Rising have that same tenacity to just push through any issues.
Yeah, he's got that never give up, gutsy, push through. Like, I don't care. Like, that infectious startup kind of mentality of like y- you really feel the passion. Like, nothing's gonna stop him. He was gonna find a
Nothing is
way,
going to
even in the
stop.
beginning. Like, didn't phase him. Like, he's gonna find a way. Had no idea how, where, however 50 million steps in between now and then, but he was going to find a way one way or another, and that's why I said it's amazing to see all those steps, to have heard some of those conversations, behind the scenes, to get there, which is amazing. And I'm sure you've heard even farther in depth, but
Frank and I, yeah, I mean, Frank used to call me about 3 times a week just to pick my brain on stuff. And so, but that's the great part about this is that, when you get those mentoring and coaching and then you roll into that CEO, you click with certain people, and another person that maybe I'll introduce you to is Kurt Balish with Balish Woodworking. Another vet that has done amazing things through Warrior Rising.
yeah, I've never actually talked to Kurt, but Kurt and I we're connected on Facebook. We were
So
in the Entrepreneur Tribe on Facebook together, but we've never had a chance to talk. But I know he's one tremendously talented woodworker.
Oh, he is, and that's like for me, that's one of my hobbies. So him and I go back and forth on some stuff, and he's another one. He was my mentee for a while. I guess still is, but really his business has taken off so much where he doesn't require too much of me. He just gives me more of a call every now and again to tell me how he's doing. But he's a tremendous woodworker and a tremendous businessman, and that's where following the steps of this program, right? So we're on step 4 with this Vet to CEO program, or Warrior Rising program, and the Vet to CEO course. But that 9 weeks truly allows, and this is kind of, it's almost like a filter, right? There are certain things that sound really, really good on paper or in your mind, and then when you start vetting it against other people, it doesn't sound so good, right? So this is another portion of that Vet to CEO where it's all like, hey, I've got a great idea. I've gone through the Warrior Academy, boom, boom, boom. And then here's where it's like, can the rubber get traction on the road, right? This is where
Yeah,
the
is it
rubber meets
really
the
a good
road.
idea? Like,
Or is it just
or is my
something?
idea crazy?
And, this is where we talk a lot about monetization, right? Businesses need to be able to sell a product to earn money. If you can't do that, it's not a good business idea, right? So this is a very, very important step of being able to understand monetization, etc. It's a great program. I've gone through it. I've gone through everything that we're going through just to test it, but love it. We have a ton of great people teaching these courses, myself included. So, and it's all recorded so that you can apply to go to the next step, which is called a business shower. So this is actually where Frank and I originally met, outside of me just reading a business plan. Now, what is a business shower, right? You have a wedding, I don't know if you said, but when you get married, you have a wedding shower, right? Get presents to help you start your new life. When you have a kid, you have a baby shower, so you have all the stuff ready for that. We throw showers all the time for everyone. Why don't we throw business showers for new entrepreneurs? So that's what we do, is that we take them aside, we get them a custom business suit, we get them a laptop computer, we get them marketing, digital SEO, a website, the list goes on and on. And if you get invited, you get a little bit of capital as well. So that's, to defray expenses. Again, this is all no cost to the entrepreneur. Now, at the business shower, you go through something called a Shark Tank. We've all watched the show Shark Tank, right?
Of course.
Well,
It's like one of the few shows on TV I watch.
yeah, it's a great show, but we want to give them. So I've been a judge at pretty much. I've only missed 2 business showers. So out of, I think we've thrown 10 now, 11. I've missed 2 of them, but they're wonderful, right? And you get live feedback from industry professionals. You get a full day of mentoring and a chance to win $20,000. Now, $20,000 is a huge amount of money for an entrepreneur that might be self-funding or anything else. So, Frank came in second. I believe he won $10,000. And I'm using Frank just because I know Frank, and he told me I could talk about things that we've done together and everything.
It sounds
Here.
about right. I mean, he posted that on Facebook and stuff like
Yep.
that. So yeah,
So
sounds
he,
about right.
it allows, one, he got all this stuff. He got everything he needed to start his business. Then he got a little bit of extra startup capital to push forward, and made a ton of connections. So when he did that, all of a sudden it goes 100 miles an hour, where now we're mentoring on how to for production, everything else. But the business shower is kind of the culmination of this program that can take anywhere from, the quickest I've ever seen anyone go through both the Warrior Academy and Vet to CEO was, I think, 3 months, 4 months. But some people, have been at it for 2 years. But then we all get to meet. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff. They're getting mentored. And then here's the kicker: is that a lot of times when you deal with nonprofits, I don't know if you've ever gone like hunting for heroes or something like that. They take you out hunting. You get to go hunting for a weekend, and you get a great bull elk, right? Yeah, I'm gonna have a European mount of a huge bull elk on my wall for the rest of my life, but it's one day. We don't want to be just a 1 day or a 1 year support system. So after the business shower, and even if someone doesn't go to a business shower, you become part of our tribe, right? And we call it the warrior tribe. So what does it do? It's helping support, right? Frank came to a business shower in 2021. I'd known him since before that, so I guess we've known each other almost 4 years. But so we met in 2020. He is still a part of the warrior tribe. He's still getting mentorship from all of us. Every single one of our business owners, whether they've gone to a business shower, whether they've just gone through the program, they're always invited and always there at the events, getting mentorship, moving forward with what they need to do in their life and for their business.
That's awesome. I'm sure there's some extremely tight connections that are made too, because I know you do things. You do some of this stuff in cohorts too. I saw on your website. You got some groups. Can you talk to what those look like?
Yeah. So the cohorts, basically, we want to give people, just like Ranger School, right? Ranger School, you go through with cohort so you can talk to other people. I haven't gone to Ranger School, just so that everyone knows. But
Makes two of us.
yeah, unfortunately, I just long story there, but I have a
We
lot
all
of,
know those are super cool, badass guys. We'll give them their credit.
yeah, we'll give them their credit. A lot of them are really my really good friends, but that's where we modeled this after, is that you really want to have that support system. So the cohorts come together, normally they're anywhere between 15 and 20 people that are going through the exact same things that you are. And one of the things that we're looking at creating is kind of almost like a Reddit chat, sub chat for the cohorts. Normally they connect themselves on Facebook, they give each other their text numbers and text each other, do all that. But that's one of the things that we're looking to do soon, is to create like a group cohort chat online within the Warrior Academy. So there might be someone that's super good at marketing. I suck at marketing, right? But my friend Nick, he's amazing at marketing. So if we were in the same cohort, I could be like, hey, Nick, I need some help here with marketing. Can you help me write up this marketing plan? By the same token, he could flip it over to me and say, hey, Ken, I need some help on this pro forma. Can you build out some financial projections for me? And then we can learn from each other while we're learning from the course. And that provides like a really tight knit. I don't know if you were an officer or enlisted, but when you go through basic training, for me, I went through OSIT, spending 16 weeks with the guys, you tend to get pretty tight knit, especially when you can't do anything else.
Yeah, I was enlisted, but yeah, I mean, when you're with certain group for a long period of time, you either get tight or you really hate each other. One of two things happen. So, but and that's why I was kind of wondering with these cohorts, because I've been in some different groups like leadership academies and whatnot for some things, and like they tend to just get really tight knit, like very quickly usually. And I was assuming it was probably the same way. They probably stay really close, and like you said, I figured they probably ended up kind of mentoring and counseling each other in different ways too.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't seen any blowups, so that's a one thing. But I think it's also the professionalism that we all bring. If you are in the military or you're a military spouse, you understand the professionalism that needs to be brought to anything that you're doing. And so I see it more go that you get really tight knit with the cohort, and they're providing their expertise across the playing field.
Sometimes I think too, there's an element of that. Well, I'll borrow from the Air Force's core value of service before self, right? Or that military mentality of like, you train your replacement. Not that your cohorts are your replacement, but you train the people around you. Like you just
Exactly.
you make people around you stronger, and you make them better. Because what's it to you? If you're running a pig farm and I'm running a restaurant, we're in totally different industries. What does it do for me other than a little bit of time to offer you some advice on your business if I happen to have some specialty that might help you? Right?
Exactly. And that's
it does
where,
not cost me anything but time.
yeah, and that's where one of the things is that people are they need to understand that, even with I still have mentors, mentees, and a lot of friends that I went through B school with and such, that we bounce ideas off each other all the time, because that's who we are as people, and that's what you need to do to become successful in life. I mean, regardless of how many quote unquote self-made millionaires or self-made business magnates you see out there, they're not. Everyone has had someone to help them.
Yeah, and a lot of those people, I'm gonna choose my words carefully here. One thing has always really bugged me, being in business, and I don't pick on my own industry here sometimes in some ways, but the real estate industry is one of them sometimes. But the like fake it till you make it kind of thing. The fancy cars, the watches, the clothes, the living the lifestyle kind of things. Like man, people read through that, man. Be genuine, be who you are. Like you don't have to go buy a fake Rolex and go lease that $100,000 BMW when you make $10,000 a year just to try and look cool.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Well, and see, I,
I
I,
think
I
everybody
saw
knows what
that.
I'm talking about. Like, and then post, and oh, your whole Instagram feed is that, with you model next to your car. Like,
Well, and I've seen that. I saw that on Wall Street quite a bit. Obviously,
oh, I
I
bet.
mean, if you look at me, I've got this beautiful, wonderful beard. I haven't shaved since. Actually, I've shaved one time. I had my last muster, that I had to go to, so I took, and it was a week because I had to make up for all the drills that I had missed while I was in Germany. Shaved that week, and that's the last time I've shaved. So
You're like,
I,
toss this in the garbage, and
yeah,
you're never buying another one.
pretty much. And but see, I kind of stuck out like a sore thumb because I I agree with like this whole fake it till you make it thing. It's stupid. Like, live within your means and grow within your means for your business, right? That's the biggest thing that I see people make mistakes on in real estate. Like, I have a lot of friends that are in real estate as well. They they aren't genuine, and when you're not genuine, it makes it harder to sell to people. Like, no matter what you're selling, like every business is selling something. I don't care if you're consulting. If
Oh
you're
yeah,
consulting, you're selling your mind. If you're running a retail business, right? You're selling cupcakes. You're selling whatever. You're selling a house.
everybody's
You know,
selling a product or a service.
exactly. So the more genuine you can be, is the better. I think one of the things that I always joke about is that I was the only person on Wall Street, the only banker on Wall Street with a CDL. I've had my CDL for a long time. I'm just all like,
You know,
I'm never getting rid of it. I
you
grew up
might
on a
very well.
farm in Wyoming.
I would not be surprised if you weren't the only one with a CDL.
So, but
It's a very good possibility.
when you're talking about things like this, and that's one thing that I try to incorporate into Warrior Rising as well when I'm talking to everyone. Just be yourself. Like, don't be a robot. Don't be just another cog in the machine. Veterans and their family members tend to be very, very good operators of business because we're so used to creating SOPs, right? For those that don't know, SOPs are standard operating procedures. So we can literally, and what you're saying is train your replacement, right? When we're starting to build things, we build it from the ground up to where, regardless whether we're there or not, if we get shot in the middle of a firefight, someone needs to take up and step up into our place. That's why we have our whole hierarchy in the military, right? And that's how most veterans treat their businesses. We're going to train you here, 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 and here. Let's go out and execute a plan. Let's create a great business.
I totally feel that. I can kind of somewhat consider myself like a policy and guidance nerd. I love those kind of things, but I mean
Well,
like that and checklists and just yeah, I totally
I
feel
am
that.
I am not. So I have one of my good buddies, another veteran, who he loves it. Like legit, that's what he does. He's like, I just want checklists, I want SOPs. I'm like, you handle that side, I'll go handle getting connections, doing everything else for the business. So
Sometimes, yeah, I think that's a really key thing, and I've noticed that in my own business, probably over the last 6 months. That I'm like, I have certain things that are my strengths, and I've realized those. I also painfully obvious that I have weaknesses, and it's like, oh boy, I need to really put the focus on my weaknesses, or find somebody who has those as strengths. To you, the only way you're going to succeed is if you either bulk those up or find somebody to fill that gap.
and that's the other part about like Vet to CEO, the Warrior Academy. You're going to find your weaknesses, right? So moving back to like the Army physical fitness test, I can run, but I am not the best runner. I am a sprinter. I'm not a long distance runner. When I say long distance, anything over a mile to me is just killer. But that also comes with being 6'4" and built like a tank, you know. Um, so
Hey, I'm not 6'4", and I'm 100% feel you on that. I did not like
but
running.
yeah, but that's
But
so.
I didn't even like sprinting. So I mean,
See, I love sprinting. But when we really look at it, that's I knew that was going to be a weakness of mine coming in. I've I've always known that is a weakness. For sprinting, 100% sprinting. Long distance running, I hate it. But that's what Warrior Rising also allows us to do, and it allows a lot of introspection. So you have to start looking yourself in the eye and say, am I good? Am I good at this? Am I good at that? I know for a fact I am not good at operations. Like, I can plan high level, put out, basically your battle plan. I can put a high level battle plan out. I have to rely on someone else to say, well, if this is happening, then we need this. Like, I can put out high level stuff, but when it gets down to the nitty gritty, I need someone to do that. Warrior Academy and Vet to CEO, I've known that about myself for a long time. So it one helps people turn that back, and I hate the saying turn your weakness into a strength. You're never going to turn a weakness into a strength, no matter, there's some people that, and I'm just going to put this out there again, going back to physical fitness, there are some people that are just born naturally good at running.
oh yeah,
Like
totally.
they're
They
there.
love it.
For
They're
me,
good at it. They're genetically just
they're
good at
there,
running.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know some
Then
people
there's
just
people
run
like
all the
me.
time, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, I'm like, that's punishment.
There's
But then there's people like me that I will never be able to compete on their level at long distance running. I just can't. So I hate that phrase, turn a weakness into a strength. You can turn it into less of a weakness, but I always have someone that can fill that gap for me. That's what they're naturally good at. They're good at putting together a checklist. All the more power to you. I can give you what I'm doing in my mind, but I could never really write it down and say, this is all the check. They'll sit there and they'll write out a checklist. They'll write out an SOP. They'll watch me do it twice and they'll be like, okay, yeah, this is how you're going to do it. Here's how we're going to write the SOP for it. So I highly agree that you need to surround yourself with people that are not yes people or yes men. We have a saying in the military, the brown noser, the yes man, the person that's never going to challenge you. I surround myself with people that are going to challenge me and have a different talent set than I have, that are my weaknesses, that are their strengths. Their strengths probably aren't mine. Like my strengths, I can get out and talk to people. I can sell them something every day of the week. Some of those people, they never want to sell in their entire life. They've told me, they're like, we don't want to be on the front lines. Let us be back here, not facing customers, anything else. We'll just have everything running in the background for you. So that's an important aspect and kind of an introspective aspect that you have to really as you go through Warrior Rising, but again, in your overall life, you have to understand what you're good at.
I think there's a lot of strength in realizing, like you said, you won't turn a weakness into a strength, but just the perspective of realizing what your weaknesses are so that you're aware of them and just be like, oh, hey, now I'm aware that A, B, and C is a weakness for me. And then now I can find a solution to deal with it, whatever that looks like. Um, and then, then you can find a way to move forward.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, overall, like, the other thing I would say about Warrior Rising is that, we don't want people to become part of the forgotten generations and the forgotten wars that this country has fought, right? Unfortunately, if you look at historical examples like Vietnam, people forgot the sacrifices that all of us made, that all the veterans made, and you know, we don't want that to happen, especially with Iraq and Afghanistan. There's been a lot of political upheaval within the past couple of years, obviously with the great Afghanistan, withdraw. We'll keep that a little bit
Yeah.
unpolitical here, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's been a lot of things that have
It
happened.
was what it was, right?
It was what it was, but we don't want current modern veterans to face the same hardships that a lot of the Vietnam veterans did, a lot of the Desert Storm veterans did, things like
Right.
that.
Well,
So
it's interesting you say that. I mean, I've been volunteering with the Honor Flight Network that takes veterans to DC for many years. Actually, this next week we have our last one for the year, but we can't really find any World War II vets anymore. And I've had these conversations with some of the volunteers before. There's a huge difference between the generations. The World War II vets would get huge turnouts for when we would bring them back from these trips because everybody's aware of the sacrifices they made. And the Korean War is the forgotten war. And Vietnam, we all know what those guys were subject to when they came back. And for the last 20 years, we just went over and over and over again. But the percentage of the population of us younger vets that went, I think is like I don't know if like 1.5% or less or something like that. It's pretty very, very low compared to the other generations. And if you talk to like young kids these days, like they don't really know much of anything of the last 20 years. What happened? I mean, they know
well,
we went to war, but they really don't know anything. And so, like, it's very important to keep those,
yeah, and I
you
mean,
know,
we've
keep the
had,
history.
yeah, it's very important to keep the history. And like for my family, just saying, my mom actually just got promoted to colonel. So she's she's in the Wyoming National Guard still. Dad retired after 25 years, and just all the impacts it has on the family, right? So my little brother, he was born like as Afghanistan started. So it's just been just seeing the impact on the different members of the veteran community and the families. I think it's another important thing, and that's another big part about why we call ourselves a tribe, why we call, you know it's more than just, I want to phrase my words right here. It's more than just a program for business. It's truly a family like you had back in the military. So that's why we do
Yeah.
call ourselves a tribe. There's been times where I've had entrepreneurs call me at 1 o'clock in the morning because something was going wrong in their life, and I was their friend that I could talk to. So, it really provides that sense of just family that you had when you're in the military. And I think that's something that a lot of us miss when we get out. I think that's why a lot of people are scared of transitioning, especially at like the lower enlisted levels, right? So
Oh, totally.
it's you're scared because you're going into something, you don't have your battle buddy right there beside you, right? Sitting on the Battle Buddy here podcast, I think that's the first time I've said it, but that's really what we're doing is we're creating a network of battle buddies for business. And so,
Yeah, I think when you get to the upper echelons, if you will, of the military, you know, they say like it's lonely at the top, right? And it probably is. You know, like when you're in senior leadership, you have less people that you can confide in and talk to. And when you're at 20, 25, 30 years and you're like, okay, well, my time is up. There is no more time. I have to retire. You have no choice. You can't reenlist or you can't, you know, take another you know, contract or whatever. Like you're done. But when you are 4 years in and you could reenlist if you really wanted to, you could make it a 20-year career. You do have all those, you know, friends and connections and battle buddies that you're all in the same rank or within a couple ranks of each other. But when you're a colonel or sergeant major or chief or you know, senior chief petty officer, whatever, like it's got to be super, super lonely at the top. I don't know. I never really asked anybody, but it must be fairly lonely.
maybe I'll have to ask
Uh,
my mom. I'll be like, hey, Mom, how lonely are you?
like how, like how many connections do you guys really have at the top? Do you guys like get together and have parties like the lower enlisted?
Uh,
You know, maybe not
good,
like,
good,
you know, maybe not dorm parties or barracks parties, but you know, like
like,
do you guys get
the
wild
good
like
old
that
barracks,
still?
the good old barracks parties. Whew,
Are you
that's
guys
bringing
having
it back
parties
there.
like that? We don't know about it. Are you hiding it from us?
No, they got their clubs, you know, those clubs that us enlisted people aren't allowed into. That,
Okay,
you know,
so it's
I
time.
always figured it was the hoity-toity, you know,
It's
the
time that
officers'
we
clubs.
know what happens behind those doors.
It is maybe
Yes.
any active duty lower enlisted, we will pay $5 a photograph if you can get into the senior officers club. I
Yes.
shouldn't put that challenge out
No,
there
no,
because
no, no.
it will happen. It
Right,
will
right.
happen.
How about this
Scratch that.
challenge? Any officers that are listening that would like to provide us stories, send stories into us. Email them to me, battlebuddypodcast at Gmail. Email me whatever crazy stories you have behind the doors of the O Club. I want to know. And I may just do a special episode and read aloud the stories because why not?
I
Who
mean,
knows?
we should put the crazy like, okay, we want the craziest stories here. We want the craziest O Club stories that you had, craziest NCO Club stories that you had, and for all of us lower enlisted, you know, for those that were lower enlisted, um, we want your craziest barracks. Again, they should be semi, you know, craziest as in no one should be getting arrested for this, but we still want to hear what
Arrested
happened.
now for this.
Arrested now. Yeah, it's not like I
I
could
like
just
this. I like this. Yes, we'll
I
put that challenge out there. I know it'll be a little while before this. Yeah, so I will. Yeah, once I release this podcast, I'm gonna put that out there. I tell you what, we're gonna put that out there, and I'm gonna put this out there for a little while. I'll put a time frame on it. I don't know what yet, but it'll be in the show notes. It'll be all over my social media. Go look at it. I'm gonna put a challenge out there, just like you said. Lower enlisted, NCO, and officer. I want the craziest stories what happens in the barracks, the the enlisted club, and the officer club. I want the
yeah.
craziest story that will not get you arrested now.
Well, because yeah, we had the SNCO club, so we didn't have like
You get a senior NCO
yeah,
club.
so it was the
Okay.
senior NCO, so it was like I think it was E7 and above on
I
most of
know
where I was at,
I
and it
was at
was
Yokota, Japan. We just had an enlisted club and an officer club. And when I was at Scott Air Force Base, if I remember right, there was just one club. I don't know if there was two parts to it or not. I don't know. I think I only went in there like twice. So
yeah,
I think I
because
went in there for Airman Leadership School graduation and maybe
yeah, there was
something else.
I know I remember. So we had just on the few, but I mean this is like Benning. So Benning had, you know, the senior, the enlisted, and then the officer club. So, well, I guess it's not called Benning anymore. It's what is it?
I have no idea. They renamed so many, so many
So
different things.
Bragg is Liberty now. I forgot what they renamed Benning.
Yeah, it beats me. But this will definitely be an interesting. I can't wait to read the submissions on this. This This will be interesting. I'll either do a podcast episode on it, or I'll just stream it out as a live recording and read them out loud, and I'll make it a try not to laugh, which
I
which is going to be
just
tough.
from some of the stories I could tell you, I'm all like, yeah, that's going to be a tough one not to laugh at.
That will be a tough one. Yes.
Fort Moore, Hal Moore.
Fort Moore, Hal
Yeah.
Moore. Oh, that's a good one to name it
I mean,
after.
yeah, at
Yeah.
least it was named, you know.
Yeah.
But I think
Awesome.
Bragg and Benning will always be Bragg and Benning to me. Like,
Well, some things will be
the,
hard for a lot of people to rewire their minds. You know.
well, I think I still have my dad got me a shirt that said Fort Benning or Benning School for Boys when I went to Benning for OSIT. So, I mean, for
Yep.
that you just have to have those things. But I
Yep.
mean, overall, I can't wait to hear about this challenge. I don't know how much longer you have, but you know, I'm pretty open. So
Yeah. Well, is it? Uh, just kind of curious more on the mindset of some of the people that go through this. Um, do you see a lot of people kind of get to a certain point and just kind of drop out and just like drop the plan in business? I'm just kind of curious, like, or do most people just kind of stick it out?
so I have a pretty big sample size. We've helped over 16,000 veterans.
That's definitely a pretty good sample
Um,
size.
so of the 16,000, about 3/4 make it through the Warrior Academy,
Okay.
or at least they get past the halfway point. The halfway point is where I see a lot of people drop out, because that's when they realize that their business isn't viable, right?
That's kind of what I was
Like,
getting at. I was thinking there's probably a point where somebody says, "Hey, man, either my business isn't viable or this is more work than I ever thought."
so, and yeah, normally that's about 4 weeks into the Warrior Academy when they start having to draft a business plan. When they have to say, will this work for me? You know, like there's one guy that's gone through twice with two different business ideas. First business idea was great in his mind, but it was for a very select. There was like 50 people in the world that do this, right? And
Okay.
it was basically like embalming, and I'm not going to say his name. He's but basically embalming animals in epoxy, so you could create scenes out of it, right? I was all like, probably never going to be your sole source of income. I could be wrong.
I
And
would
he,
agree with that assessment. Probably not, but
but there's some weird guy. You know, there's some weird. People have. I can't say weird taste. They have
it's
unique
all in how
taste.
you market it, I
Yeah,
guess. I
and
don't know what the market is on that.
apparently not very. So I sent him some market. Like I told him where to go look at market research and things like that. Not very much of a market on that. So his first slew through the Warrior Academy, he was there for about 4 weeks, and then he dropped out. Then he came up with the secondary business, or then he came up with another better business idea, um, which is basically just a mobile franchising kind of computer repair business, and he's gone through with that.
Okay.
So
Do you find a lot of people coming through with like franchises and stuff, or
yeah, and that's one of the things that we do is that sometimes people don't want to start up their own business idea; they want to start up a franchise. So right now, if you actually go onto our website, we've partnered with Dirty Dough, which is a very large national chain of cookie restaurants, and we'll be giving away a free Dirty Dough franchise. People have to go through the Warrior Academy Vet to CEO so they can run it. But yeah, a lot of people, you know, it's like, hey, just let's go this route.
yeah? Well, I mean, it takes some of the ideas, the branding, some of that stuff. It's just, well, I mean, that one is giveaway, but other franchises just buy into it, and a lot of that stuff is taken care of.
Yeah, and you have the support of a national organization. So it's, you know, with Dirty Dough, they have their own marketing machine. They have everything. You don't have to do any of that. Like me starting up another new business here with Main Street Bond, I have to do all that myself. So, you know, Warriorizing does help, you know, franchise owners and veterans start to own franchises as
Yeah,
well.
I know it's I mean, being in real estate, my license is with a large independent brokerage. It's in 37 states, Fathom Realty, um, 37 to 38 states, wherever they're at now. But before I did that, I had thought about starting my own real estate brokerage. My mother and I doing that together. And yeah, you know what? Just even that, the regulatory side with the state of Illinois and the requirements for certain things, it was just like, man, no, it's so much easier to even just join another company. Or if you wanted to, just go get a franchise agreement and bring a franchise to an area than to start a new business from scratch in this space. It's wild how much
Well,
paperwork you have to do.
that's
And it's relatively easy in real estate. Like,
yeah, that's
because you
where
don't even
I'm
have to
at.
have an office space. But they were like, oh, you don't want to have a physical office space? That's cool. But we need to be able to tap into all of your records electronically and be able to look at like something like that. Like, or we need to be able to come into your office and check on things, make sure you're whatever. And I was like, look, man, I'm techie, but I ain't that techie. Like, I don't know how you do this. I was
Uh,
like, oh, this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
yeah, and that's where we're at. Is like for my business right now, I'm a federally regulated by FINRA. So because I'm dealing with people's money, everything else, it gets difficult. But that's one reason why we like, even though we say it's all entrepreneurship, owning a franchise is entrepreneurship, right? I don't want like no one should ever bash a franchise owner. Why? Because it takes it's a little bit different flavor of entrepreneurship, but it takes the exact same amount of dedication and everything. Some of my best friends and mentors have been franchise owners. So that's, want to make sure that's clear to everyone that yes, we do support, Warrior Rising does support franchise owners, and it's not a cop out in any way, shape, or form of being a traditional, brand new business that's your idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how much work do you want to put into it? Do you want to come up with the only idea and the logo and all that back work, or do you just want to just fork out some money and take a model that's proven that works and hit the ground running? I- Whatever. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to you know a franchise if I was looking to do something different.
Yeah.
But I mean, to each his own. But I think everybody should look at all the different options. But I'm sure with 16,000 people you had come through, I'm sure you've had some ideas you guys have looked at and been like, man, that is a genius idea. And you probably had some come through to you probably make a few different faces or a few different comments in your head of like, what?
I try to go into every business idea pretty open-minded because I mean, if you would have looked back in the day, when we were growing up, Uber, you know, don't get don't get into the car with someone
It's a fair
that you don't
assessment. Yep.
know, things like that. So because I've also seen all the businesses at my previous jobs come through, I keep a very, very open mind. But things like putting a dead animal in epoxy, I was like, that one might,
Yeah.
and I mean, you have to, and that's the other part is that I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Like I told Frank, going back to Frank, I told Frank I was all like, probably not the most, and I mean, I'm like, it's probably not like $100 million scalable business, but Marines are going to love it,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
I
the
think I've told him
military
the
is
same
going to love
thing. And
it.
I'm like, this is a novelty thing, right? It's not a mainstream thing, but this is a novelty thing that you sell at Christmas. People put these in their stockings. These are things that, like, I don't know if you've ever been to a Cracker Barrel, but like where you see those kind of novelty things on the shelf and you're like, okay, I'll pay a little bit more for it because this is really cool, because the packaging is cool or the idea is cool or you're connected to the military somehow. And you're like, yeah, no, I'll pay that because I'm curious.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's the thing is that you get to see all different types of ideas, and and I mean, you have to be brutally honest. And I try, when I say brutally honest, I should say 100% honest. When I see an idea that I don't think will work, I'll give them that assessment. I'll say, I don't think this idea will work. Why do you think it will? And then that gives them the chance to think through it because I I can tell you the answer on a math. Like if you and I were to be taking a math test, right? I can give you every answer on that math test, and you will not have learned a dang thing. But if I teach you, it's kind of that old adage: teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day.
Absolutely.
So I want to encourage that business mindset, that problem-solving mindset, every time someone comes to me with a business idea.
Yeah, that's really good. I think it took me quite a few years in my business because my mother and I were business partners for a few years. It took me a few years. I would go to her all the time because she was, my mother, my trainer, my mentor, everything, right, in the real estate business. It took a few years before I finally got to the point where I would go to her with a problem. But when I would go to her with a problem and ask her a question, I would already have a solution in my head. And I'd go to her and be like, all right, mom, so here's what happened. Here's what I think I should do. Is that right? Or is that wrong? Right.
Well,
And then I would let her tell me, okay, that's right, that's wrong, whatever, here's why. Right. But at least I'd come with here's what I'm thinking, so that she would know where my head and my thought process was, and she could help me course correct wherever I needed to be and turn it into a learning lesson. And that was when I flipped that mindset and approached things with that. Yeah, that was huge for me.
yeah, I learned that fairly early on. I actually had a good chief. He is the former chief warrant officer of the state of Wyoming. Actually left being so he transferred from being an officer to being a warrant officer. But I ran his TAC op section for a long time, so tactical operations, and every time that I would come to him and I'd be like, hey, this is our problem, he's all like, you're just complaining to me. If you bring me a problem without a couple solutions, you're just complaining. So that's something that I always try to instill in all of the and I mean our program does that as well, but I instill that in all of all my mentees, and then I instill it, in our program tries to instill it is that, if you're bringing a problem without at least some type of solution, all you're doing is complaining, and complaining doesn't get anyone anywhere.
That's true. Yeah, and complaining is a negative attitude.
It is, and especially with entrepreneurship, I know you. This is the one point that I will say: you have to fake it until you make it. Sometimes you have to fake being happy and being ecstatic when the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You've got 10 different bills coming due in the next 2 weeks, and you don't know how I've been in that situation many times where, especially when I was first starting out, I didn't know how to manage cash flow. I didn't know how to do all that. And so you had to be happy for your employees so that they didn't know, the world was about to fall in on you. So
Yeah,
that's the one
absolutely.
time I would say you have to fake until you make it, just to maintain a good attitude.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. Yeah, sometimes you just kind of have to it is what it is. So you just kind of have
Exactly.
to grin and bear it and smile and press on and realize that, better days could be ahead. And another thing I think you probably see a lot of this, they probably have challenges with this, is failure and people kind of dealing with failure. And, it took me many years to kind of wrap my head around, but to be okay with failure. Like that's the only way to grow, is to fail. Not that you want to fail. Obviously you want to try to succeed, but it's okay if you do fail, because that's how you learn. That's the only way to learn and press forward. You don't learn as much from successes.
Yeah. So have you ever watched Rocky Balboa? It was the last boxing film that
Yeah.
he's got a great speech in there, right? It's one of my favorite speeches of all time that's done by a non-historical character, where he's sitting there, he's all like, I can't hit as hard as life, you can't hit as hard as life, nobody hits as hard as life. The thing is that life, and it's the same in life and business, is that life and business, if you let it knock you down and keep you there, life will just continue to curb stomp you. Like that's just the way it is. So when I learned how to deal with failure, and going back into like my MMA days, jiu-jitsu, you're going to fail. Like, you have to go into it knowing you're going to fail in some aspect. Doesn't mean the business is going to fail, but you're going to fail somehow or some way. It's how you react to it that's different. So for me, I've seen a lot of business owners with great businesses get knocked down by one failure and then curl up into the fetal position. For me, when I get knocked down or fail, my reaction is almost always I get angry at myself, or and then it gives me an internal drive to push even harder. But you have to figure out what your reaction to failure is going to be. If you're someone that as soon as you fail at something, you're going to curl up on the floor and cry, as long as you pick yourself up pretty quickly after that, you're good. Otherwise, just like the movie quote says, life will keep you down forever. So learning how to deal with failure, and it's the same thing. I'm a big proponent of mental health as well. So, and I know you are. So that's one of the reasons why you started this. You have to learn your strategies to be able to, accept some hardship. Like, we've all lost friends in one way or another, whether it be in combat, whether it be to suicide, anything else. A lot of people's reaction is to go find themselves a bottle and drink away the feelings. In business, sometimes that's the same thing, is that people will, if I failed here, so I'm going to go, drink for a week or whatever. I don't know what they're going to
Yeah,
do,
or
but
it's a long day, or this didn't work in my favor, so stop at the liquor store. And
yeah. So you have to find the healthy coping mechanisms, whether it be, for me, it's jujitsu, it's fighting, it's working on cars, it's woodworking, all of that. But for the business owner, you have to be able to say you're going to have failure. It's going to affect your mental health. And you have to have those coping mechanisms almost installed, ready to go. So, like for me, I'm in the middle of starting a new business. Things didn't go my way about 2 weeks ago. I mean, it was tough. I was supposed to be in DC, ended up having to speak at a conference, had to deal with FINRA, and dealing with the government every time is just a wonderful thing.
oh, of course, yes.
I mean, my regulators are super, super awesome. But again, like, if I wouldn't have had my internal coping mechanisms, that failure would have crushed me, because here I was looking at an end of October launch. Now it's looking a little bit further down the line. Some of those failures were on me. So, yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, my philosophy is, well, it is what it is. And some things are outside of your control. Some things are in your control. And if it's in your control and you messed up, okay, well, learn from it and press on.
Exactly.
That's all you can do, or, military, adjust fire, move, shoot, move, and communicate. Use whatever you want to use. Right. But I think that's a good place to wrap up. I appreciate you coming on here, Kenneth, and sharing with us.
We'll have to, next time we'll have to chat more about just entrepreneurship and not Warrior Rising. I mean, Warrior Rising is near and dear to my heart, and that's why this one we wanted to chat, but definitely want to come back on, chat a little bit more about mental health and things like that, things that I've learned. So
yeah, no, I think that'd be a great yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to have one on entrepreneurship and mental health and kind of merge into two of them. I love that. Because it's, it can be a challenge. Sometimes you can have a good day, you can have a bad day, and you have to have those tools. So yeah, we'll put together something for that for sure. So
right.
And yeah, anyway, I really do appreciate it. I think this is super valuable, painting a good picture for everybody if they're interested in it. I'll throw that up there, scrolling across the bottom. It's in the show notes again. Warriorizing.org. If you're listening to it and you're too lazy to look at the show notes, you can go there. Everything's on the website. Yeah, they've got a lot of other information and resources on there. So go check it out. If you've got that business idea, that nugget in the back of your head, go apply.
Yeah, no better
Take your
time than the
shot at it.
present. No
Yeah,
better time
well,
than the present.
hey, today's a heck of a lot better than tomorrow, and you couldn't do it yesterday. So, so anyway, I once again, Kenneth, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Keith, and we'll talk soon.
Yep. There you have it, folks. As always, if there's a resource not on the website you think should be, please let me know. Remember, the website is battlebuddypodcast.net. And if you are struggling for any reason, remember the National Suicide Hotline number is 988 press 1.